ਹੈਲੋ ਜੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਆਦਾਬ, ਨਮਸਕਾਰ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸਰਵ ਅਕਾਲ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ ਸੁਸਾਇਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ-ਬਹੁਤ ਸਵਾਗਤ। ਸਰਵ ਅਕਾਲ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ ਸੁਸਾਇਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਐਵਰੀਡੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਮਾਰਨਿੰਗ 7:30, ਈਵਨਿੰਗ 7:30 ਸੇਮ ਟਾਈਮ। ਸਾਡੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਹੈ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਕਲਾਸੀਕਲ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ, ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਕਲਾਸੀਕਲ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ, ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੈਰੀ ਲਾਈਕ ਆਲ ਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਵੈਰੀ ਗੁੱਡ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਲਾਈਕ ਸੈਕਸੋਫੋਨ, ਪਿਆਨੋ ਐਂਡ ਵਾਇਲਨ, ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਇੰਸਟਰੂਮੈਂਟ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਗਾਹੇ ਬਗਾਹੇ। ਤੇ ਇਨ ਬਿਟਵੀਨ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਮੌਕਾ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਲੋਕਲ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ ਜਾਂ ਲਾਈਕ ਮੇਕਰ ਹਨ, ਇੰਸਟਰੂਮੈਂਟ ਮੇਕਰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਰਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਬਹੁਤ-ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ, ਬਹੁਤ-ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ। ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹਨ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰਵਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਰਵ ਅਕਾਲ ਦੇ ਕੋਆਰਡੀਨੇਟਰ ਹਨ, ਵਾਈਸ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद। ਤੇ सिंगर मिश्रा जी बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद आपका। आकाश पारकर जी बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद। पंडित शैलेंद्र कुमार पाठक गया घराना, बहुत-बहुत शुक्रिया पंडित जी। ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਪ੍ਰਿੰਸੀਪਲ ਇੰਦਰਜੀਤ ਤਲਵਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੁੜੇ ਹਨ, ਬਹੁਤ-ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ, ਬਹੁਤ-ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਬਿਹਾਫ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ, ਮਿਸਟਰ ਜੈਸੀ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਨ, ਅਤੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਧਰਮਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਨ। ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਦਾ ਸਿਲਸਿਲਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ ਯੂਕੇ ਦੇ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੀਰੀਜ਼ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੇ ਇਸ ਸੀਰੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ, ਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਜੋ ਇੰਸਟਰੂਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਹੈ ਸੈਕਸੋਫੋਨ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਵੈਰੀ ਬਿਊਟੀਫੁਲ ਇੰਸਟਰੂਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਮੇਰਾ ਅਗਰ ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਕਲਾਸੀਕਲ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ ਦਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਫੇਵਰਟ ਇੰਸਟਰੂਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਪਿਆਰਾ। ਅਗਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਕਲਾਸੀਕਲ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਅਗਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਾਲੀਵੁੱਡ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਓਲਡ ਐਸੇ ਸੌਂਗ ਸੁਣੋਗੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੈਕਸੋਫੋਨ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਕੰਮ ਹੋਇਆ, ਵਰਕ ਹੋਇਆ, ਕਮਾਲ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੋਇਆ। ਔਰ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਬੜੀ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਸ ਇੰਸਟਰੂਮੈਂਟ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਸੀ, ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਰੁਝਾਨ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੋਇਆ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਬਿਊਟੀਫੁਲ ਇੰਸਟਰੂਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਅੱਛਾ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ इंस्ट्रूमेंट प्ले कर रहे हैं। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया मनोहर भाई, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। साढ़े ना सर्व अकाल म्यूजिक सोसाइटी ਜਾਂ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਪੇਜ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਜੋ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਰਿਕਾਰਡਿੰਗ ਸਾਡਾ ਜੋ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਹੈ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ, ਤੇ ਸਰਵ ਅਕਾਲ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ ਸੁਸਾਇਟੀ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਦੇ ਪੇਜ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ, ਸਰਵ ਅਕਾਲ YouTube ਚੈਨਲ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਪ੍ਰੇਮੀ ਹਨ, ਸੰਗੀਤ ਦੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਹੈ ਜੁੜੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਸਰਵ ਅਕਾਲ ਸੈਮਸ ID ਹੈ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਰਵ ਅਕਾਲ ਦੀ, ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਲੋਕ ਜੁੜੇ ਹਨ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਲੱਗ-ਅਲੱਗ ਗਰੁੱਪਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਲੱਗ-ਅਲੱਗ ਪੇਜਸ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜੁਆਇਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਹੋਇਆਂ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਵੈਰੀ ਬਿਊਟੀਫੁਲ ਇੰਸਟਰੂਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਜੋ ਇੰਸਟਰੂਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਸੈਕਸੋਫੋਨ, ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹਨ, ਤੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਭਾਈ ਰਾਜਵਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਵੀ जुड़ चुके हैं, उन्होंने सारे के बिहाफ पे अमितवा पात्रा भाई बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। आप सबके बिहाफ पे हम चलते हैं उस्ताद धर्मवीर सिंह जी के पास और सुनते हैं उनसे आगे का जो प्रोग्राम। जी उस्ताद जी, वेलकम टू सर्व का लाइव प्रोग्राम।
नमस्कार जी, नमस्कार, सत श्री अकाल, आदाब बर्स है। आज कितने दिन हो गए, बिल्कुल ऐसा लग रहा है कि जैसे वक्त जा रहा है बहुत तेज, and we are so pleased कि we've been able to bring glimpses of musicians from England, a small island, but I feel very proud that this little country has got amazing wealth of musicians from all over the world, and a lot of new things have happened in this country as well. And today we are going to be meeting a musician who, when it comes to some innovatory work, when it comes to looking at Indian music, maybe with a different angle. His name is very prominent. Jesse Bannister, who plays the saxophone, and today I'm very privileged that he is with us and will be talking with him to just get little glimpses into his musical journey and talk about his instruments. So welcome, Jesse, on behalf of Sarabakal Music Society of Calgary, and we're so happy that you're joining us.
Sat Sri Akal. Thank you so much to Saab Akal and to Ustadji Dharamveer Singh Ji for giving me this opportunity to share what I feel is a beautiful music, and with the blessing of the community, especially the Sikh community, I've been given an opportunity to be part of this wonderful circle.
Thank you, Jesse. It'd be lovely if you could just give us a little glimpse of how you came into music, what inspired you, and then we'll talk about how your journey started from Leeds when you got in touch with Indian music. Before that, just tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so my mother's Indian, and I was raised in Tottenham in London by my father, who was into Indian classical music. So my dad used to listen in the 60s to Ustad Vilayat Khan, Ustad Bishmala Khan, the old LPs. And his best friend is a Tibetan bowmaster called Frank Perry. So from a child, I was listening to very serene, peaceful music. And so this vibration was around me from a child. And then when I think I was 15 or 16, there used to be a program on BBC called Network East at 2 in the morning. I don't know why I was up at 2 in the morning, but I saw Pandit Ravi Shankar play, and I was just fascinated by his playing, the way he improvised. And then when I was 18, I was lucky enough to go to Leeds College of Music. I'd been playing the saxophone for 2 years at that point. And then I met Ustadji Dharamveer Singh. It was quite an interesting meeting because we were a cohort of 60 students. And I remember it really vividly. And we were offered the opportunity to study either Caribbean music or Indian music. And I think 55 people chose Caribbean music, and me along with some friends chose to study with Dharamveerji. And it was the beginning of an amazing journey, because not only were we studying music, we were part of a community. At that time, the community of music in Leeds was very close, because Dharamveerji and his wife, Babaji Gunwant, they'd started these amazing community classes, evening classes. So I was already involved with young children as well as the adults who were learning music. So we were constantly engaged in projects, concerts, rehearsals, and obviously time spent with Dharamveerji and his family in his home was really a true learning for me, I would say. It's always a blessing to share music in people's homes and amongst people's communities. And over a period of 25 years, I learned a lot. I grew up. I had my own children as well. I've toured the world. I've composed for big projects. And one beautiful thing is that I've been able to now work with Dharamveerji's children. So I work a lot with Kaviraj Singh at the moment, and he's just an incredible musician. So it's wonderful to see that no matter what small thing is going on, how much it can grow into something very beautiful and all-encompassing.
All I can say is that, that's your sort of perspective coming from that end. And I can just say that for me, it's all been a miracle to see these people who, as you mentioned, Kavi Raj, there was a day when he was born, a little baby, and
Yeah.
and see how he's coming on, and I remember that day when I got to see you, and we started doing work in Indian music. And luckily for me, I just started the Leeds College of Music job, and I had probably less of sort of commitments. It wasn't very clear, and we
Mm.
were able to go into that little room, if you remember.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so the training which we did then was very much similar to the traditional Guru Shishya type of a model,
Mm.
that we were one to one, and sometimes we would sit quite long. And I, if you remember, that I always knew that the sound of saxophone will go very well.
Yeah.
And if you remember, just share with us those early days when you were sometimes really struggling with this. I was sort of looking at your intonation and little things, and do you remember any sort
Yeah,
of
I
thing?
mean, on reflection, to me, the saxophone is such a male instrument.
Mm,
It has this association, which is it has an essential association, has an association with smoky bars and jazz bars. So I was having to overcome this challenge of what was the perception of this instrument, and the the moment that actually I awoke was it was the second concert that I played, and we were playing Raoul Berdevi in Rupak. This was, I think, '93. Um, and as a blessing, Ostaji decided to come and sit on the stage last minute and play harmonium. So here I am, sat on a chair. Jonathan Price, the guitarist, is sat on a chair, and our teacher is sat on the floor playing harmonium. And I played terribly that day. And after the concert, I realized that I needed to come and sit on the floor, and I needed to tune more into the vibration of the sitar. So I used to love listening to Ustadji tune his tarafs, because then I realized that that was the best way for me to tune into the vibration of the raga. I tried scientific approaches at that time, but they didn't work. I really just needed to listen more and respect and understand the tambura and the tradition of vibration. And I feel I've tamed the saxophone to become more of a balanced instrument. So there's the feminine quality there as well. I guess in the curvature of the notes, the sliding, which I can't do fully, but it's a case of understanding that. And there were certainly some groundbreaking moments with just tiny little things. So, for example, the ornament sa re re sa 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 re re sa, just doing that for a year. That's all I did for a year. Allowed me to really fully immerse in what I would call the accent of raga. I was missing the accent, and I remember, I think I did a competition in London, and Pandit Shantaram Koshalka was the judge, and he put in his comments, saxophone shouldn't be played in Indian music. This is what he put in the comments. And then, for some reason, Ustaji decided to get Shantaram Koshalka, an incredible vocalist, very well respected in India, Mumbai, to come and teach at Leeds College of Music and come and teach me. So I spent 6 months convincing him that it was possible. And after 6 months, he taught me to play Rag Bihag, and this was the beauty of being around Dharamveerji in the college, because he did, although I was learning directly with Ostaji and I was learning in his home and learning his tradition, the Vilayat Khan tradition, he really wanted us to go and learn from other people, which is a rare commodity from an Indian music teacher. He saw that we could blossom alongside other senior teachers. So I studied with Shantaram Kushalka, I studied with Professor Yashpal, Pandit Rajan Sajan Mishra, Pandit Ajoy Chakraborty, Pandit Rajiv Chakraborty, and these are all people that Dharambeji brought to Leeds because he had a real passion about bringing us within the Indian classical music circuit. And I think for us, because we were in England, the teaching was very different. I think it was maybe we were lucky that it was a bit more open. And me being having an English name and looking English and playing an English instrument, we could get away with a lot more, I think. So it allowed us that freedom, and I think this freedom and beauty within raga is what really appeals to me.
And not only that, Jesse, would you remember when with Pandit Rajasajan Mishra and some of these musicians at Wakefield Retreat, you
Yeah.
guys used to play cricket outside,
Yeah.
and and you see that was the breaking the ice between these monumental figures in India.
Yeah.
You would find it difficult to even approach them, and here in England, because they were so friendly, they were kind of moving around, that they were
Yeah.
playing with them, they kind of and our youngsters who were learning, they kind of got to amazing opportunity. And I think back of why I did that, I was very clear that people, youngsters in England, are never going to be able to get in close proximity to these musicians. And I
Yeah.
think my success story, I can say that this is a model I hope that can be used in other countries and other places, even in India now. I mean, I'm quite convinced that that this is how we somehow allow and create an atmosphere where students can soak and get from and with not ever losing the relationship with who nurtured them. It's like I often give an example of a mother. A mother raises a child, and in the stages when they need real attention and all of that, in many ways. And when they are beginning to take life on their own, the mother allows that, for them to accumulate experience. And every human being, every musician is unique. And I guess that's an interesting model, that, giving that initial thing, and people are going to see Rupa in action. Rupa is also very similar kind of grooming, where they met. Jesse, there was one instance I'd like you to share where you guys were practicing very late at night in Wakefield, and Pandit Rajasajan Mishra probably heard you guys, and they came, was it midnight, and they taught you something very special in Rag Malkons.
Ah. Yeah. Myself, Rupinder Chaga, and Rupinder Rupa Panisa, we just loved spending time together and jamming and challenging each other. Like there was things I could do on the saxophone that we couldn't do on the sitar, and things obviously Rupinder could do. Yeah, of course, but Bhupinder was kind of catalyst to it all because he
Bhupinder's
had
just
this,
put they
yeah,
are all they are listening. They say, yeah, I was there too.
yeah,
Good, good.
it was great. So we were like, we're gonna make this happen, and so we'd stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning practicing, and then one night, Pandit Rajan Sarjan Mishra heard us, and they're like, "What's going on?" They couldn't sleep, so they came and saw us, and so they sat down, and they were really like just so like blessed to think that these young musicians were doing all of this, and they recalled, I can't remember his name, but their uncle was a sitarist, and so then he remembered this composition in Malcolms, because we were playing Malcolms, which starts from beat 2 of Tintal, and it's just an incredible composition. Something like da din din da da din din da da din din da da din din da 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 da, and like so all 3 of us were just like in heaven. It was like the dream competition.
15 beat, three fives.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, don't you think that that kind of a thing is almost a template, and
Yeah.
learning these templates means that you could actually apply that in other rags. that 15 structure starting on the second beat.
Yeah.
Give us any more memories from those times,
Well,
anything else. And
actually,
the other one I'm going to prompt you is the one where I made you do a master class with Rajan Sajan on Bhimpalasi.
oh, yeah.
That for
My
me is
my my perception of Bimplasi was all over the place,
yeah.
and you made me go first as well. I think we had master classes all week, and I went first. And I think it's okay to set a student up to fail, because when we fail, we learn a bit more.
I don't,
So
I don't, I don't call it fail. It wasn't fail. The idea was to polish them. I mean, I was
yeah,
grappling
exactly.
with master
Yeah,
class. In Indian music, we've never done master classes.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this was an idea, and I said, okay, if a student already knows a rag and they
Yes,
play, and then a musician absolutely turns it, polishes into a proper rag kind of a thing, and that's what was achieved. I mean, just tell us what did you play?
well,
What
I
how did,
yeah, I played a composition that I was shown by Shantaram Koshalka in
hmm,
Bimplasi. Sa pa ni da sa ni da pa ga ma pa ga sa da ga ma ga di sa ni sa ma ga ma pa. So biraja mehi doom, something like this, and it's a very puncham based bimplasi.
yeah,
And I didn't know, but bimplasi has this strong, also madhyam flavor that
landing on
different
the ma,
artists, yeah, so different
yeah,
artists
yeah,
play the raga in a different way. So perhaps the
absolutely.
face I was showing was the wrong face. I was so confused why they were saying no. It's more pa ga di sa ta da ta da da. So they had more emphasis on the madhyam.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
that changed the whole thing. As soon as the Madhyam brought in, the color kind of changed, and then
yeah.
amazing things they were taking off from the ma for me. It stuck. Even for me, it was a learning to say mani dhapa ma,
Yes.
taking off things from ma, and then the interaction and happened. I mean, I will remember for rest of my life. You being my first guinea pig, or my first experiment for master classes,
It's funny because
apparent, yeah,
I met Pandit Ronald Majumdar in Mumbai a couple of years later, and I played for him what I
yeah,
thought was this was this correct perception, and he said, "There's one thing you're missing. Sa pa sa ni da." So he had this emphasis on the Daivat as well. So so that's almost an extension of this
yeah.
sama.
Bhupinder is reminding us that what you actually played was Ja Ja Re Apne Mandirwa. That famous, yeah.
Yeah,
And that's what Rajan Sarjanji worked on that.
absolutely.
But I mean, the point is that as you go deeper into the ocean of rag knowledge, you find that it's not only just one note, but there are many dimensions. The same rag can be looked at from different angles, and every
Yeah.
composition will push you. So it's almost
Mm.
like looking at a vessel or a cup from different places. It remains the cup, but every composition gives you that little angle to that,
Yeah.
and I think this is insight. Let's move into from there onwards.
Mhm.
Um, just you were a jazz music student, you were a jazz musician,
Mm.
and during that time, I suddenly remembered, Jesse, if you remember, the big giant of Rudra Veena, Asad Ali Khan Sahab came we did workshops, and in that the famous Dagar Sahab, the old Khan Sahib came, and and they did workshops. And do you remember that with Asad Khan Sahib?
vividly,
he
very vividly.
he
So yeah,
yeah.
we were playing Rag Yaman at the time,
Yeah.
and it was me and James were playing, and for half an hour, he was asking me to play. Ni, di, ga. So every time I'm hitting Gandhar, his face is going like this. No, no, it's ga, na, ga, ga. So I'm playing this note sharper than it's obviously supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I just went home feeling so bad. That day, James gave up. He actually gave up Indian music that day. But I think a year later, I went to Delhi. It was my first trip to India. I went on a tourist trip. I didn't go as a musician. I actually went to Hemkund. I actually went to the temple
Wow.
in the lake. It was
Wow.
by total chance. I went with my brother and we decided to go to the Himalayas. And I bought a map, a random map from a shop in Leeds, and the map was of Badrinath. So we headed to Badrinath, and by the time we got there, there were loads, hundreds of Sikhs. Why Guruji ke Fateh ke Khalsa? Come with us, come with us. So, okay. So we went up to Hemkund, which was very beautiful, and then we came back through Nainital and Kausani and to Delhi. And on my last day, I went to a concert in Delhi where Ustad Asad Ali Khan was playing. And I went and said hi to him, and he couldn't remember me. It was quite funny, but it was lovely to know that I was doing something that wasn't right, but it was such a tiny thing, but has been a huge challenge for me to spend time. Okay, what is the tuning of the raga? What is the tuning of the saxophone? What is the tambura? What is the essence of vibration in nature that raga has come from? So it goes. It just for me, the layers are going deeper and deeper and deeper. I love hearing a tabla player tune their tabla. I love hearing tambura tuned. It's just if I hadn't have
I
had that lesson, I wouldn't be where I am,
Yeah,
basically.
I think that this is where it's so valuable that you are now looking at that and
Mm,
seeing that interaction with the Drupadiya, a Drupad who a singer or a player, for them
mm,
that is a must.
yeah.
Intonation, the sur, the shruti
Mm,
is critical, and sometimes in other traditions we tend to ignore and get on and just let's play some fast dance and things, but and this I'm so amazed that you've taken that and seen that how that was important in sowing the seed in you to say that how the sur, the intonation of different
mm.
rags and the notes, at least that's how we can then develop. I
Yeah, it's,
remember, if
yeah,
I
sorry.
can sort of just the same point, that when I
Yeah,
saw my ustad talking,
um,
just like that in his own way, talking about the ray in Marva, and
yes,
now he's living that ray in his head. And I
yeah.
can't naturally know what he's actually hearing in his head. But he's
Mm,
kind of just, it's like almost the sap, the juice, kind of, he's sort of enjoying that one note ray of Marva. And and
yeah,
these are some, so share with us some of these, what you call the finesse, the the very intricate aspects of Indian music, which you as a Westerner had to seep into, and how you, or what is the advice you give if anyone coming from your kind of background wants to get into
yeah.
this
I think
culture?
the two main pieces of advice. I was given a recording of a tambura of Pandit Pram Nath's tamboras,
And yes,
and those tamboras are incredible. You can hear all of the frequencies within the tambura, and he specifically designed these tamboras to have no decoration so that the vibration was at its highest. And he explains that his teacher used to sit in the river, so the river was his tambora. So, therefore, there's a suggestion that there's a link to Nad Yoga when it comes to sound vibration.
yeah,
So I've started doing Sanskrit, and it seems that there's some wrong translation. So when we talk about sur, we talk about shruti, and apparently shruti is what we can hear, that's the literal translation, but it doesn't actually mean that. It basically refers back to inner sound and Nad yoga. So with the tuning system, we really have to know what our inner tuning is, and the simplest way to do that is to chant Om. When we chant and we sing, we're brought straight to universal sound, and we're brought to the tuning, the natural tuning of nature and our own bodies, which if you play an instrument is actually it's beneficial. It's a practical method. It's a very beneficial method to be chanting long notes. I mean, you don't have to chant Om. You can chant a long note and you will start hearing the vibrations and the frequencies that your instrument really wants to replicate, because all instruments are replicating nature or our voice. So it's making that connection between the voice and the instrument, which obviously was shown to me by Dharambeerji when we did classes. He encouraged us to sing, and I didn't have a great voice, but he realized that it needed to be a function of our practice and learning.
Yeah, I think the thing that sometimes instrumentalists are scared of that, but the point is that we're not singing in order to show to other people that we can sing, but it's this inner singing, is this inner feel. So Harjeet ji, if ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋ ਜੈਸੀ ਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਓਮ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਚ, ਹੁਣ ਦੇਖੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੀ ਜਰਨੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਦੀ ਜਰਨੀ ਸ਼ਰੂਤੀ ਦੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੰਸਕ੍ਰਿਤ ਚ ਸ਼ਰੂਤੀ ਵਰਡ ਦਾ ਇਸਤੇਮਾਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਓਮ ਇਸ ਅੰਤਰਨਾਦ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਣਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਨੰਦ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਆਨੰਦ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਸ ਨਾਦ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਵਾਜੇ ਪੰਜ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਘਰ ਸੁਭਾਗੇ ਤੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਦੇਖੋ ਜੈਸੀ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਦੇ ਮਾਧਿਅਮ ਦੇ ਥਰੂ ਉਹ ਹੀ ਸਿੱਟੇ ਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਨਿਕਲਦਾ। And Jesse Guru Nanak, the first thing he said in his first, saying to the world was this Ik Omkar Satnam. So this Omkar is the creator, this is the true name. If there was a name, because there's no name for that creative principle, but he says that is the only.
Yeah. In Christianity, the Gospel of St. John, in the beginning was the Word, and the
absolutely
Word
in the beginning was Word. Absolutely, and in the Sufi culture, you find they talk about zikra, they talk about there are hundreds of words which are indicating to this principle, and this is why you people like us, people like Harjeet, we are all Nad yogis or Nad sadhaks. We are into this sadhana where we have taken the sound as our connection, because in order to really realize your true self, we need to get a thread and to climb on that, rope. And for us, it's the sound, because that's where it's originating from, that primordial sound, and I'm so, because I haven't spoken with you or even seen you for so long, we've almost living different lives, but to see that where your journey is taking you into your spiritual aspect of things, and that it's so beautiful. And also what I'm learning is that end of the day, the music within a musician needs to be nurtured inside of you, in your system, in your head, and then your instrument is an extension of that musician, that expression. And as you start to sing, as you start to feel, it automatically comes in your music. So Jesse, you were also for us a great person, a very rhythmic person, because you were always playing percussion. There were, you had different projects in percussion, and your saxophone playing coming from the jazz had something very attractive for all the Indian rhythm guys, tabla players, and them, and they all used to find you very interesting. I remember Pandit Ajay Chakravarti ji, when he saw you do the tans and the way you move within the rag and kind of do that. Just give us a little bit of insight how though your rhythmic upbringing was from a different world, and how that came into this and actually, enhanced your rag expression.
Yeah, so when I was 16, I used to go out dancing in jazz clubs. For me, the dance floor is where I learned music. And I was specifically into dancing at the time. There were a lot of jazz dancers in London, and so my rhythm came from my feet. I was brought up in a black community in Tottenham as well, so the music was a rhythmic experience. So by the time I came to Leeds, I was really driven by rhythmic music, and the rhythms that I was into, or the music I was into, was cyclic rhythms, which is very similar in Indian music. So I got into Brazilian music heavily at the time as well. Um, but for me, lay or rhythm in Indian music is about discipline. Whether we're doing something funky in Tintal or we're playing Tishra in Japtal, there has to be a discipline within that. So one has to start from basics, and the rhythmic aspect gives me the discipline. So one of the exercises I did was a 32 note pattern, which was a practice pattern shown by Pandit Rajan Sarjan Mishra. And I practiced that for a year. That's the only thing I practiced. And because it placed me within a cycle, it meant that I couldn't leave the cycle. And then through my rhythmic understanding, I could get a different perception of this cycle of 32 notes. And then I think there was this perception that I was just this amazing rhythmic artist in Indian classical music. And then again, I was presented to Ajoyda, Panditji Ajoyda. This was again in another workshop situation. It was at Leeds College of Music. I think there must have been 50 to 100 people in the room. And I was playing Yaman. That was actually with Pandit Harjinder Pal as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Ajoyda stopped me. He said, there's this perception that your timing is very good, but I disagree. He said, the problem is you're as a Westerner, you're stood outside of the time cycle. At the time it was Tintal. He said, you must come inside. You must join within the time cycle and surround yourself with time if you want to be an Indian musician.
Wow.
So again, I was blessed to get it, I guess, a little bit wrong, and develop my Indian rhythmic playing, because it's very different. I've spent much time with Pandit Bikram Ghosh, who I would say himself and his father, when it comes to Upaj, next to Pandit Shada Sahai, I would say, their perception of Upaj is incredible, and their perception of time and lay is just of such a high level. And I just soak it in. I just allow myself to be there. So for me, keeping tali for a musician like that was such a blessing, and also being able to keep time for my good friend and brother Bhupinder Chaga, because I used to love playing. I could play an hour Nagma or Lera because I knew I'm learning so much by just playing this simple melody and listening to tabla. And then I'd obviously play with Ustad Sukhvinder Singh Pinky and just really soaking in this vibration of tabla, which there's no other instrument out there like that. It's like sound of the earth's rhythm for me, tabla.
Yeah. Also, give us a little insight into your, jumping into the Carnatic percussion world and some of the spokens. Maybe you can speak something,
I think my first expression of that, or meeting within that, was working with Balu, who's the mridangist at the Bhavan in London, and Balu is such a cheeky chap. He's always smiling. And
you mean Bala?
Bala.
Oh,
Balu is
Bala. Balu is the violinist. Yeah.
Violinist, so Bala.
Bala.
And then I think Chandru was there. The other violinist, Chandru, came to that workshop too. And they showed us Korvai, which is their basic tihai, which is like tatum ta tatum ta tatum ta tadigana tom tadigana tom tadigana tatanga 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 tadigana tom tadigana tom tadigana tom tatum 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 tadigana tom tadigana tom tadigana tom. And it was explaining the maths behind this, and that was like, whoa, that's like a whole different area as well.
Because I remember when you're in your development, as you were moving, you started making me scared because you were taking these mathematics and all of that, and I remember you trying to explain to me, and I was like, oh no, I was finding really difficult because I think this is what is so beautiful, that how every musician kind of moves and kind of is directed into what their likings are and how the whole game works. And in order to bring what I call the, for in my eyes, it's the Almighty expressing through you and finding different ways to express and, and be unique. And this is where, for me, it's like every person is unique. You are unique. You are the only one. There's no second like you. And and to just see you flourish and kind of do that. Just talk about some of the challenges of you breaking new ground. There were a couple of things that you were white, you were playing saxophone, you were playing Indian music, and all of that, and in a society in England, and then generally, what were the challenges, and do they still remain challenges?
I think apart from the tuning aspect, the only real challenge would be, I would say, would be economic, because the Indian saxophone doesn't really have a place within the concert programming. So it's very difficult for a promoter to promote a saxophone rather than a sitar or an Indian instrument. So I would say this, that there aren't really any challenges left, because I've almost established this way of playing. I understand the limitations of my instrument. I mean, I can't slide on the saxophone. Sure. I can't produce the quality of timbre that a bansuri or a sitar or a voice can produce. I've taken my instrument to the edge of where it can go in terms of what it can do with raga. I think my limitation is probably in raga perception, and more I play and I listen and I learn, I find so much depth to raga. It's almost like, what do I know when it comes to raga music? So I think that's probably the biggest challenge that I've come across, really, is what is this thing called raga? Where is it from? I mean, is it a set of notes? Is it a deity? Is it a river? It's just a fascinating subject for me. And from coming from a Western background, I would say that's been the biggest challenge. And obviously being accepted by the Indian music community.
I think the acceptance, I'd like you to just quickly share with us that you have been invited many times to India to perform. I mean, who have you performed with? What are the very projects which really are there for you, you remember, cherish?
The first concert I played in India was at Pandit Swapan Chowdhury's Saraswati Puja on January the 27th, 2000. My friend Jim, who's a tabla player, was having his Gandhabandhan that day. And Swapan, I'd visited Jim in Swapanji's house, and Swapanji said to Jim, bring Saxophone Man to play.
This is in Kolkata, yeah?
In Kolkata, yeah. We were living above the fish market in Kolkata. So bring Saxophone Man. So, okay. And he heard me play Nagma for Jim, and he looked at me and says, I want you to play a concert for Saraswati Puja. So I turned up, I'd prepared Bihag, first musician plays Bihag. I had Yaman in the back as well.
Mm-hmm.
Next musician plays Yaman. Then I had Bageshri waiting. Next musician plays Bageshri, and I just went up to Swapanji. Swapanji, already 3 ragas have gone. Please let me play Malcolm's, please. So we played the same composition, the Pandit Rajan Sarjan Mishra composition. And afterwards, after he heard me, he grabbed me and says, Jesse G, I don't like the saxophone, but after I've heard you play, this is a very different experience. And yeah, and afterwards I played in Saptak Festival in 2005. I was invited by the late Pandit Nandan Mehta, and I spent time in Nandanji's house. And this was actually the same year that Bhupinderji also went to the festival, Saptak. Yeah, that again was an amazing experience, and being accepted by such a learned audience as well.
Wow.
Yes, and also playing in my last concert in India was at SRA for Pandit Ajoy Chakraborty, which was in front of a very learned audience as well. I forget the name of the singer who was 105, 106. Do you know the singer, Darrenby?
He passed away recently.
He passed away recently. Yeah. He sat for the whole concert. And Pandit Buddhadev Das Gupta was there as well. It was for me, it was such a blessing to have that opportunity. And I also, I recognize this high level of musicianship and artistry. And I also want to bring this music to people, because I feel that classical music should be available to any level of listener. And I'm happy to receive acceptance and blessing from all people too.
That's so beautiful. Just share with us your two projects which you're doing. One is Imovi, and the other one, the book you have produced, and the third one was the app you did. Just talk about these three.
So Imovi is an acronym for Indian Music on Western Instruments. So I've run 4 projects for this, including summer school. So I'd normally invite a senior vocalist from India to teach half the class, and I would teach the other half. And out of that, we made a book called Melodies of India, which features notation in Western and Indian script, which is the 20 most popular raga compositions. And it has a CD. And Ustadji Dharamveerji had input into this as well. And this book is available. You can contact me directly. But the latest projects I'm doing 2 projects which are related to each other. I've just received some funding from the Arts Council to do a project called In Tune. So I'm basically retuning a grand piano. So grand pianos are now tuned to what's called equal temperament. And the vibration of these notes is very dissonant. So if you imagine vibration is like this, but I've retuned it so the vibration is to Shruti, and so the vibration is more at peace. So I'm going to be composing and playing the piano, and I've invited Rupa Panisa, Ashwin Srinivasan, and Nandini Shankar, and I'm probably going to get in touch with Bhuvanesh Kumkali, who's sorry, the name's come from me, who's Kumar Gandharva's grandson. And we're going to create a CD of recordings using the piano and Indian music, because most fusion projects are done where the Indian musician has to compromise their tuning. Sure. So this project is where there is no compromise. And this is the precursor to a 4-year PhD I'm doing, which is called In Sympathy. And In Sympathy is the same idea, except I'm not playing the piano. I'm going to play the saxophone into the piano and create sympathetic resonance. So I'm going to turn the piano on its side, retune it to Shrutis, play the saxophone into the piano, record the sound, remove the saxophone, so we're just left with the sympathetic resonance. And obviously, this is inspired by sitting with Ustadji, listening to him tune his
I
tada.
was going to say that a big sitar there, isn't
It's a
it?
big
With
sitar,
those
basically. Yeah, it's a very expensive sitar, basically.
very expensive sitar.
So
Yeah.
this is a PhD I'm doing, and I'm doing this in York. And this is quite interesting because in '94 I was offered an MA in York to study with Professor Neil Sorrell. And Darren Ridgey said, "Oh, I'm starting this course, this 2-year course. Why do you want to do an MA? You'll only get to study 1 hour a week, but you can do 5 days a week studying with me. It's only BTEC
My
level course,
foundation course.
foundation course after a degree." So it was a blessing to do that course. I learned so much. But actually, Neil's going to be supporting my PhD. What, like 25
Jesse,
years later?
we have some wonderful musicians out there. Shabaz is
Oh,
saying
hi
Jesse.
Shabazji. So nice
Jesse
to
is a
see
wonderful artist. Of course, Bhupinder is sending
you.
great
Oh,
wishes. Anantvir, who is our amazing musician out there in LA, and they are very much associated with Kamaljeet and Jaswinder.
okay.
Yeah, in LA, and so there
Oh,
are people out there, and they're sending their good wishes, and
thank you
pranams,
so much.
and they are enjoying, your input. So we see, that you are going from strength to strength, and we all look forward to, more things to come, and we're very happy that your journey, particularly for me, that it's going into what I always believed, that Indian music was created from the depths of inner listening, and it was an outer expression of that. And it was but natural that if you touch that from outside, you're going to start getting inwards into that space. And I'm so happy that that is the space you're entering, and I wish all the best, and keep looking forward to listening to you. Just tell us a little bit briefly about the performance you are sharing with the audiences after this conversation.
Yeah, so there's a very short piece to start with, which is a bhajan in Hemant. I love the rag Hemant, and I haven't had the opportunity to play it because it's obviously an autumn raga. And so I've just started with a simple bhajan. It's almost to introduce people to the sound. And then I played Alap and Alap Jor in Rag Galvati. I love this raga. For me, it reminds me of the sunshine. And today is the full moon in Leo, and Leo is like the sun, the lion, the king. So that's why I've chosen to play Galvati. And then there's a composition in fast Tintal in Madhavanti. When I've learned from sitarists and sarod players, I've learned dida compositions,
Dun, dun, dun.
these kind of
Yeah,
compositions without really
instrument,
saxophone. They're not really
yeah.
saxophone based things.
No,
So I've started to compose things which more suit the saxophone. So this composition
sure.
is similar to that. I made a bit of a mistake with an upload. There's a Multani Japtal composition starting from seven and a
Yeah,
half.
don't. Okay, but
But
maybe
I can share
leave
it another
that to
time.
now. Leave that when you visit Calgary in person, also, because you can play all the stuff which you wanted to. I could have gone for hours talking with you, in more detail about a lot of things, today. So my apologies that because of
No,
the lack of time, we have to just keep it succinct. But nevertheless, Rupa Panesar also is saying that,
I
a brilliant
request.
conversation. She's enjoying it as well. And Harjeet, I will now let Harjeet ji speak, because normally he would have actually by now taken over and brought a lot of connections with the listeners, which is very good with engaging them, because they are from different parts of India, different parts of America, and even Australia, and other countries. So I think now we're going to let Harjeet ji Just maybe we could just give a little gist of what you've been talking about. But with that, we'd like to really thank you for being with us. And Harjeet ji, and I see Payal Patel here also. So why don't Sarbakal just acknowledge Jesse Bannister and say a few words to him?
Namaste, Jesse. How are you?
I'm very well. Lovely to see you, Payal.
Sorry, I just joined, but I have been listening to this conversation. It's early morning here in Calgary, and I was just getting ready to go to work. So I was really enjoying this conversation, and I felt like, okay, you know what? I need to come in to this conversation just to express my feeling. Like, it's amazing to listen to your journey, to understand the ups and downs that you've gone through, but out of it you have been blessed to be able to connect with music in such a different level and different way. And music can do that. Doesn't matter what genre you're learning, and just to listen to that, it's just great. And thank you so much again to be part of Sarbakal Music Society, and to our listeners who are able to hear your journey and connect with things that you say, and some of those names, the masters that you have been privileged to meet. We just sit here and think that, oh gosh, only if I could, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, great story, and again, thank you.
Thank you
It couldn't
so
be.
much, Payal.
I could listen to you, just like the VG said. I could just sit there. You guys can have conversation, and I could just listen to your journey. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
थैंक यू पायल जी, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद पायल जी, आपने टाइम निकाला। और
थैंक यू हरजीत जी।
या थैंक यू वेरी मच। तो दोस्तों, हम लोग आज बातचीत और कन्वर्सेशन हो रही है हमारे बहुत ही प्यारे वेरी वेरी एक्सीलेंट आर्टिस्ट मिस्टर जैसी उस्ताद जी, उस्ताद धर्मवीर सिंह जी ने जो ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਰਨੀ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਬੜੀ ਪਿਆਰੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਔਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਝ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜੈਸੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਕ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਨੰਦ ਮਾਣਿਆ, ਤੇ ਕਲਾਸੀਕਲ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ ਦਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਰੋਲ ਮਾਡਲ ਹੈ, ਆਈਡਲ ਬਣ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਅਗਰ ਜੈਸੀ ਨੂੰ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਐਸੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ, ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਅੱਛਾ ਰਸਤਾ ਹੈ। ਗੁਰੂ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰੇ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਰਸਤਾ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਰਹੇ। ਅੱਜ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ, ਅੱਜ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਜਸਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਮਾਰਤਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਰਥਡੇ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਪ੍ਰੇਮੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਜਸਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਬਰਥਡੇ ਤੇ, ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਉਹ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਜਸਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਕਿਤੇ ਗਏ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ। ਜੋ ਵੀ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਹਨ, ਸੰਗੀਤ ਦੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਨ, ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ, ਸੰਗੀਤ ਪ੍ਰੇਮੀ ਹਨ, ਪੰਡਿਤ ਜਸਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਹੋਣ, ਤਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਨ, ਤੇ ਜਿਸ ਵੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਸੁਣਦੀ ਰਹੇ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਬਣਿਆ ਰਹੇ। ਤੇ ਸਰਬ ਅਕਾਲ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ ਸੁਸਾਇਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਦੀ ਸਮੁੱਚੀ ਟੀਮ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਜਸਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਬਰਥਡੇ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਪ੍ਰੇਮੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੁਬਾਰਕਾਂ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ, ਸੰਗੀਤ ਦੀਆਂ ਖੁਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ। ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਦੋਸਤੋ। ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਦਿੱਤੇ, ਔਰ ਬੜੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਅੱਛੀਆਂ ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸੁਣੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਇਹਦਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਪਵੇ, ਸਾਡੇ ਹਿਰਦੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਪਵੇ, ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਅੱਛਾ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਸ਼ੰਕਰ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਬੜੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਨ ਦੀ ਅਵਸਥਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਬਿਆਨ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ ਸ਼ੰਕਰ ਜੀ। ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਜੈਸੀ ਜੀ ਜੁੜੇ ਹਨ, ਉਸਤਾਦ ਧਰਮਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਜੁੜੇ ਹਨ, ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਡੀਆ, ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ, USA ਤੋਂ ਅਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਕੰਟਰੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੱਜਣ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ, ਸੰਗੀਤ ਜੋ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ, ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ, ਗਜ਼ਲ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ, ਸਿਤਾਰ ਪਲੇਅਰ ਹਨ, ਤਬਲਾ ਪਲੇਅਰ ਹਨ, ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੱਜਣ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 5 ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਪੇਜਸ ਤੇ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਸਰਵਕਾਲ म्यूजिक सोसाइटी ऑफ कैलगरी ਦੇ ਪੇਜ ਦੇ, ਜੋ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਪੇजेस ਹਨ, ਜੈਸੇ ਅਕੈਡਮੀ ਆਫ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਕਲਾਸੀਕਲ ਮਿਊਜ਼ਿਕ, ਹੈਪਨਿੰਗਸ ਇਨ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਅਤੇ ਸਰਵਕਾਲ ਸੈਮਸ ਆਈਡੀ ਤੋਂ ਜੋ ਲੋਕ ਜੁੜੇ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਹੈ। ਸਰਵਕਾਲ YouTube ਚੈਨਲ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੱਜਣ ਜੁੜੇ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਤੇ ਸਵਾਮੀ ਆਨੰਦ ਅੰਕੁਰ ਜੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ। ਸਵਾਮੀ ਆਨੰਦ ਅੰਕੁਰ ਜੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ, ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਇਸੇ ਹੀ ਉਮੀਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੈਠੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਨੰਦ ਮਾਣੇ ਹੈ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਦਾ, ਇਹ ਕਨਵਰਸੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਚੱਲਿਆ ਕਿ ਜੈਸੀ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਜਰਨੀ ਹੈ, ਮਿਊਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਜਰਨੀ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਰਹੀ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਰਿਹਾ ਅੱਛੇ ਅੱਛੇ ਆਰਟਿਸਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਕੰਟਰੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਪਾਇਲ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਹਨ, ਤੇ ਸਮਾਂ ਆਏਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਜੈਸੀ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਯੂਕੇ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੈਲਗਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਉਣ। ਤੇ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਯੂਕੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਨਾ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਆਉਣ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਣ ਕੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਹਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧਣ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਕਲਾ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਜਾਣ। ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਸੱਜਣ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਹੁਣ 5 ਮਿੰਟ ਦੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੁਣਾਂਗੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਰਿਕਾਰਡਿੰਗ ਹੈ ਆਪਣਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਜੈਸੀ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਸੈਕਸੋਫੋਨ ਦੀ, ਬਾ ਕਮਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੇ कि उन्होंने उसे सुनिए। सुभाष कांति दास जी बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपके दर्शन हुए हैं, नमस्कार। तो बहुत जल्दी हम आपको भी सुनने वाले हैं फरवरी 1 को। बहुत ही प्यारे आर्टिस्ट हमारे साथ जुड़ने वाले हैं, तो हम लोग चाहेंगे कि ऐसे ही ये सारे आर्टिस्ट, ये जो सर्वकाल म्यूजिक सोसाइटी ऑफ कैलगरी का फेसबुक पेज है और सर्वकाल यूट्यूब चैनल है, हम लोग ट्राई करेंगे कि आने वाले टाइम में जैसे अभी 1-2 घंटे 4 घंटे लाइव सेशन चलता है, तो आने वाले टाइम में ऐसा समा आ जाए कि 24 आवर हम इस संगीत का आनंद माने, वो भी लाइव, और बातें हों, आर्टिस्टों के बारे में बातें हों, उनकी जर्नी के बारे में बातें हों, और पता चले कि कैसे सब लोग इतनी मेहनत करके आगे इस कला को लेके जा रहे हैं। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। तो हमारे साथ बहुत सारे जो सज्जन जुड़े हुए हैं उनका एक एक शब्द थैंक यू वेरी मच जी। डबल प्रिया जी बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका, धन्यवाद। तो बहुत सारे सज्जनों ने अपने कमेंट दिए हैं। तो उस्ताद धर्मवीर सिंह जी ने दस ही दिता है कि साढ़े ना बहुत सारे अच्छे अच्छे गुरु लोग उस्ताद लोग जुड़े, तो असी तुहाडे सारिਆਂ ਦੀ ਇਸੇ ਹੀ ਉਮੀਦ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਰਿਕਵੈਸਟ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੱਲ ਦੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਰੋਤਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਦੇਣ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਕੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੜਾ ਆਨੰਦ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਲਾਸਟ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰੂਪਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ, ਤੇ ਭੁਪਿੰਦਰ ਜੀ ਔਰ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨ, ਤੇ ਬੜੀ ਉਮੀਦ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੱਜਣਾ ਦੀ ਦਿਲੀ ਚਾਹਤ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਕਈ ਐਸੇ ਲੋਕ ਹਨ ਰੂਪਾ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਬੜੇ ਫੈਨ ਹਨ। ਤੇ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਲਦੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਜਾਏ ਕਿ ਕਦੋਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਤੇ ਕੱਲ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਹੈ। ਜੀ ਉਸਤਾਦ
थैंक यू वेरी मच। कल नूं जो है वो कविराज सिंह अपना संतूर, पर कविराज दे उत्ते जो है वो भी एक आई होप कि एक बड़ा इंस्पिरेशनल होएगा साडे नौजवानां लई, साडे यंग कलाकारां लई, कि अज दे समय दे विच जे ਸੰਗੀਤ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਲਿਆ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਕੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ। ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹਾਂਗਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿ ਕਵਿਰਾਜ ਸਿੰਘ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਨੂੰ ਮੇਨ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਹੋਇਆ ਕੀ ਕੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਇਤਨਾ ਅੱਛਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ, ਅਤੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਵੀ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚੋਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਕਿੰਨੇ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਲੈਵਲਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸੰਤੂਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਝ ਨਵੀਆਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਆਲਟਰੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਹਨ। ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਝ ਟਿਊਨਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗਾਣਾ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਹੈ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਅਜੇ ਚੱਕਰਵਰਤੀ ਜੀ ਕੋਲੋਂ, ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵੀ ਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਨ, ਕਲਾਸੀਕਲ ਦੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਬਹੁਤ ਅੱਛੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਸ਼ੀਰਵਾਦ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਉਹ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਸਾਂਝੇ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਰਨੀ ਕੀ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਪਰਸੋਂ ਦੇ ਦਿਨ ਅਸੀਂ ਰੂਪਾ ਬੈਨੀਸਟਰ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਦੇ ਬੜੇ ਸਿਰਕੱਢ ਸਿਤਾਰ ਨਵਾਜ਼ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੋਏਗੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਤਬਲਾ ਵਜਾਇਆ ਹੈ ਉਪਨੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ, ਉਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਲੇ ਬੇਟੇ ਹਨ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਸ਼ਾਰਦਾ ਸਹਾਈ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਾਗਿਰਦ ਹਨ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੇ ਜੁੜਨਗੇ। ਸੋ ਆਈ ਹੋਪ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਜੁੜਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਿਹਰਬਾਨੀ। ਸੋ ਲੈਟਸ ਲੁੱਕ ਫੋਰਵਰਡ ਟੂ ਜੈਸੀ's ਪਰਫਾਰਮੈਂਸ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ।
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ ਜੀ। ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ
थैंक यू
थोड़ा जिहा भी
सो
दस
मच
दियां
धर्मवीर जी। थैंक यू
थैंक यू
अगेन।
जी, यू
आपका
वेलकम।
बहुत बहुत
थैंक
शुक्रिया, आपसे मिलके बहुत खुशी हुई। अगेन इट्स नाइस टू सी यू and being part of our Serbakal Music Society. Hope to see you sometime in Canada too.
Sure.
जी
Thank you.
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ ਜੀ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਜੀ। ਤੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਸ਼ਾਹਬਾਜ਼ ਹੁਸੈਨ ਖਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਅਤੇ ਰੂਪਾ ਜੀ, ਭੁਪਿੰਦਰ ਜੀ, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ, ਸ਼ੰਕਰ ਜੀ ਤੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਬੜੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋ। ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਕੁਲਵਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ, ਬਾਅਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਤਾ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਰੇ 5-6 ਪੇਜਾਂ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ, ਤੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਤਾ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ, ਤੇ ਪੰਡਤ ਸੁਸ਼ੀਲ ਕੁਮਾਰ ਜੈਨ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ, ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜਗਮੋਹਨ ਸ਼ਰਮਾ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ। ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਕਿਆ ਬਾਤ ਹੈ। ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਯੋਗੇਸ਼ ਗਰਗ ਜੀ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ। ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਅਲੱਗ-ਅਲੱਗ ਪੇਜਾਂ ਤੇ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ, ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਮਾਰਦਾ ਇੱਧਰ ਉੱਧਰ ਤੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਪੇਜ ਤੋਂ ਪਤਾ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਹਸਤੀ ਜੁੜੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਹੈ। ਸੰਗੀਤ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਸ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਰਾਮ ਅੱਲਾ ਇਹ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰੇ, ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਇਸ ਕਲਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੀਏ। ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਸਾਡੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਭਾਈ ਸੰਗਤ ਰਾਮ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਪੇਜ ਤੇ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਹਰਵੱਲਭ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਸੰਮੇਲਨ ਦੀ ਬੜੀ ਜਿੰਦ ਜਾਨ ਹਨ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ। ਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਦਾ ਸਿਲਸਿਲਾ ਸਮਾਪਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਜੈਸੀ। ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਾਇਲ ਜੀ, ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ। ਤੇ
Thank you so
ਉਸਤਾਦ
much.
ਜੀ, ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਧਰਮਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ, ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਸਾਡਾ 2 ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹੋਰ ਰਹਿ ਗਿਆ, ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਇਹ ਕੜੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅੱਗੇ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਰਹੇਗੀ। ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ। ਗੁਰੂ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰੇ ਜੀ। ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਰੇ।